Hello, my name is Sophia. I was born and raised in Toronto, and today I thought I would do a video on 3 things you might want to know if you're thinking of visiting or moving to Canada, specifically Ontario and Toronto. So here we go. Number one is that there are 2 official languages in Canada. One is English and one is French. At this point, there's only one province which is majority Francophone, which is Quebec, and this relates to the history of this country. There were English settlers and there were French settlers that were trying to colonize this country, and they battled and ebbed and flowed. And you can see the legacy of this in place names all across North America. For instance, one of the most well-known states, New York, is named after York, which is in England, and originally parts of this land were called Nouvelle France, as in the New France. And as it is, there is an agreement that English and French would both be official languages. So in Ontario, when you buy anything from shampoo to butter, there will be ingredients and labels in English and French. So for instance, this is Pantene shampoo, and you can see it will say, for example, like cleanses and volumizes in English, and then it will have it in French. Nettoie et procure du volume. I'm not francophone, do not judge me on my pronunciation. But yeah, any items you buy, even if you get on a plane, they'll have the like hello and instructions and what to do in situations. They'll have that in English and in French. There are also many Indigenous languages in Canada, and recently there was a law passed at some level of government, I'm not sure, where now Indigenous representatives are allowed to speak their own Indigenous language in Parliament or whatever assembly it is, but that's pretty new and I don't know the details on that. Number 2 is that there is an Indigenous culture in Canada. There were people living all across the country when European settlers first came here, and initially they signed treaties with Indigenous leaders. In Ontario, it was with the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, which used to be called the Iroquois, and other groups. And initially there was an agreement that there's enough land for all of us, you do your thing, I'll do my thing, and we can live in parallel, and there's enough for us all. But over time, the European governments basically did not follow the agreements that they'd made, and they intentionally moved Indigenous people off their traditional land and weakened their connection with their ability to support themselves, their language, their everything. They created the reserve system, and so many Canadians today have a complicated relationship with Canada Day, because while this country has offered a lot for many people, it is a fact that Indigenous people today often have a lower quality of life than the rest of Canadians. There is now a day called Orange Shirt Day, where people wear orange shirts in memory of the children who went to residential schools. And you can also see the legacy of Indigenous culture in the place names around Canada, provinces like Saskatchewan and Manitoba, Toronto. There's tons of Indigenous place names everywhere you look. Even one of the biggest streets in Toronto, Spadina, is originally a Haudenosaunee name, I believe. I think it's called Espadina or something like that, and it's a really, really old path that the street still follows. Number 3 surprises a lot of people that you can only really buy alcohol from 2 places, the beer store or the LCBO. In some places there is like a little LCBO within a grocery store, but yeah, those are pretty much the only places you can buy alcohol, and as a rule you cannot consume alcohol outside unless you're on a patio in a restaurant or a bar. So recently they started a project where you can drink alcohol in a park between certain hours, at least in Toronto. But yeah, you can't be openly drinking alcohol. So that was 3 things about Ontario, Canada, and I'd love to know what you found most surprising if you have ever visited here, or how this compares to where you live, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.